The sun has left and forgotten me.
Your stories don't define you, but how you tell them will. I'm Sarah Elkins, your host and chief story maker at Elkins Consulting. I say that I'm a chief story maker because I know that I have to live the stories I want to share. That means I have to stay true to my values in every action, every word that comes out of my mouth. So if you want to have the stories to share that demonstrate who you are and what matters to you, you have to make those stories by living that life. Today's guest is Edward Simberg, and we met on LinkedIn. It was kind of a random invitation to connect because Edward saw some of the content that I was putting out there, looked at my LinkedIn profile and said, oh, she could attract a lot more qualified leads and people and business, and she could really expand her impact if she was attracting the right clients. And he reached out to me, and I've heard this before hundreds of times. I get a ton of these kinds of emails that feel random, feel like they're salesy. But when I got on a call with Edward, I immediately knew that this guy was going to change things for me. So, listeners, you are in for a treat. You get to meet Edward Simberg. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you. It's also always so fun when you get to hear the way you interpreted the way we connected. We never talked about that before, but I'm glad it was good.
Well, I did know, based on our first conversation, that you had really looked at what I was putting out there. Like that was obvious. You had done your homework. Most of the people that I get random sales messages from don't do their homework first. Like, how many times do I get have you ever thought about starting a podcast? I'm like, excuse me? I mean, 400 episodes? Or have you thought about writing a book? I'm like, did you not even look at my profile? I get those all the time. Have you thought about how I could improve your sales funnel? I'm like, if you're reaching out to me that way, that means that's how you're going to approach my potential clients. Ew, that doesn't fit my brand at all. Yep. So your offer definitely stood out.
It's just so scary to me because, have you gotten the emails where it's like, hi, Sarah, I'm really impressed with what you did. And then it's like in brackets, you see that it's a template.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
I got one of those just a couple of days ago, and it was even the follow-up message. So I was like, okay, this is just a obviously completely automated outreach thing that people do. And I'm both scared and excited about the fact that, be authentic, just like do a little bit of looking into whoever you're going to talk to, and you're already, in the top 5% of people. I find it so easy to stick out if you just do that.
Well, it comes back to my introduction here. Like, how do you want to be perceived? What's important to you? And how do you demonstrate that? So let's back up a little bit. I want to make sure that we follow the idea I had originally as we started talking about what to talk about. So let's start by I'd love for you to share something about yourself that most people don't know about you. And I ask that question of almost all my guests because it helps us put into perspective how complicated we are as human beings. We have a tendency to get sucked into a soundbite about somebody based on one interaction or how they appear on social media. And we forget that people are complicated. So what do you think? Do you have something you could share with us?
I love that, first of all. But yeah, absolutely. I think the main thing that I am very proud of that I don't think a lot of people realize about me is like the discipline that I have with my health. And it comes from purely like rationality, which is very, very odd. Because I remember a couple of years ago, I read the book of Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I guess everyone knows who he is. Biggest freaking human being on the planet, pretty much. In his book, he said that he always saw himself as disciplined, but not disciplined enough. Imagine if Arnold Schwarzenegger thinks that about himself. How skewed our self perceptions are. But yeah, no, I like early in COVID when everyone was talking about vaccines and medication and all of these artificial way to become healthy. I was just like, why don't we just talk about taking care of our health? So I made myself a challenge of working out every single day for a week, which was extreme for me. And I just wanted to make it sustainable because I couldn't, I obviously couldn't kill myself every single day. And then 1 week went by and I was like, that was a really big accomplishment. And then now that I've done a week, let's try and do 2 weeks. And 2 weeks turned into a month. And then I've just kept it up. So I haven't missed a day in more than 5 years.
Wow.
So that's something that yeah. And yes, I was saying with the rationality, I was just thinking, what is going to make my life easy mode? Health. If I have my health, everything is going to be easier.
Absolutely. So. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I think about that with anything I do, like at the beginning of this conversation, when I said that I need to live the stories I want to share. Mm-hmm. It also, what you just said, ties into the conversation we had before I hit record, which was we tell ourselves a certain thing or we give ourselves a label. And you were wondering, how many of us give ourselves that label and then hang on to it because we just give up trying to do something differently? So my first thought was, you said the word discipline in the Arnold Schwarzenegger book. My first thought when you said that was, we have this perception gap between how we see ourselves and others and how others perceive us. And that can be like a huge gap if we're not conscious about how we want to be perceived. Not that we have control over that, but we do have influence. So when you think about that gap, where do you think your gap is in terms of what people think of you versus what's actually what you think of yourself?
Ooh, that's a juicy question. I think a lot of people that know me thinks that I'm extroverted, but I'm extremely introverted. Or I feel like every single introvert can put on a very extroverted appearance at times, and I think that's the impression most people get from me. But I find it super interesting that there's some friends that I have that I've realized after spending quite a bit of time with them that, like, wait a second, you're actually super interesting. It's almost like you need to spend a little bit of time with someone. You need to burn that candle a little bit before you realize how big the fire is. I think I'm that kind of person. I don't think I'm,
it's not an instant flame.
No, I wouldn't say so. But again, this is just my own perceived gap.
Well, sure. It's interesting that you brought up introvert versus extrovert because I don't really think about those labels anymore because I think most of us, it really depends on the situation. And they say that the difference between them is how you recover from your extroversion.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, I find that I do it in a lot of different ways. Sometimes a group of people will totally energize me. And then other times I'm exhausted afterward. So I don't know, that label doesn't fit me. I'm sure it fits other people one way or another. So what do you do to regroup? What do you do to recover from the interactions, like when you and I have these long conversations? What do you do to recover from that?
So So the thing that I love more than anything on this planet is my dog. Like just hanging out with my dog is the best. And I bet like I know we're both dog lovers here, so yeah, just like going out for my walk, throwing a stick with him or a tennis ball or whatever. And I had I can't remember how much we talked about this, but I had a very like extraordinary experience just 2 weeks ago when I went to Namibia. Did I tell you this thing?
No, I didn't hear this.
Okay. So I'm currently in Cape Town in South Africa, and I came here just because I had this expedition in Namibia that I was going to, where we were seven guys who had no idea what we were going to be taken through, but it was like the whole thing was to discover what it means to be a healthy man in this day and age. And we were dropped out in the desert, and we walked for hours and hours and hours, and we like cycled for, I don't know what it is in kilometers or in miles, but like 30 kilometers. And we climbed mountains. Like we did a lot of these kind of like extreme adventure type of things.
Physical challenges.
Both that, but the smart thing is it was combined with like asking ourselves deep questions. Like, who do we want to be? And like, how do we want to come across, and what impact do we want to have, and what do we see standing in the way? Like, so it was a really good mix between doing something really physically extreme, like something really fun and adventurous, but in between we had these deep conversations of how we can become better people. But I noticed as I was away, so we had no phones for 10 days, which was awesome. I had no idea how much I was going to appreciate not having access to the internet, to social media, through these kind of things. It's like, when it's almost like you get out of the sauna and you realize what normal
how hot you were.
Temperatures. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But so whenever I have the moment to just like be with my dog and nothing else distracts us, we're just having fun. I know he only thinks about what's present in the next 3 seconds.
Mm.
And yeah, that's how I typically tend to recharge with my dog.
We can learn a lot about that being present from toddlers and dogs, right? Like I can't tell you how many books I've read that's kind of the end lesson that we learn is to be more present like our dog, or to be more present like a toddler, be more curious like a kid. All those lessons that we forget as we age. Huh.
Do you still dream a lot? And I don't mean when you sleep, but like dream about life.
It's funny you ask that question, because I've never had a bucket list. I've never had like an ultimate goal or anything like that. I'm just not very goal oriented. That's where my gap is that people just see how I'm constantly striving, and they assume that I have like this achiever talent, that I have this discipline, but mostly I just get bored easily. And and I want to have positive impact because I really care about people, and I really love my community, whichever community I'm focused on at any given time. And that's what drives me to do the next thing. It's not a dream. I want to be this, or I want to have that. And it really hasn't ever been that. I do have some ideas, like I'd love to be traveling more globally. And I'd like for that to be paid for through my work. So, doing keynotes and workshops globally, but I only speak English. So that has really limited that idea. However, that's when I think about it, I know other people are far more driven than I am toward a specific vision or goal. And that's actually how I say the difference between my sister and me, because we look identical. And she's my younger sister, right. But we look identical. And people say, well, how are you different? And I say, well, she's the 5-year plan girl and I'm the 5-minute plan girl.
Yeah.
So what about you?
Yeah.
You must still do that because you're still striving and traveling. And you said you'd always wanted to go to Cape Town, and here you are in Cape Town.
Yeah. I mean, yes and no. I used to do a lot more. Like I when I was a kid, I used to I wanted to be a professional soccer player, and then I used to play in a backyard, and I scored a goal. And I dreamed that I was taking Sweden to the World Cup final, which would never ever, you know, they've never been even close. So I felt like then when you're a kid, your fantasy is just so much more real. When you grow up, I feel like that kind of fades in a way. It's almost like visualizing and dreaming is a muscle that you need to maintain.
Mhm.
Because if you don't do it, then it's just going to disappear little by little. But I have some ideas, but I actually I think I have a very weird urgency of feeling like that everything is just developing so fast that there's almost no idea. There's just no point making long-term plans because the whole game is going to be different in just a couple of years. So I'm super interested in technology and AI and all of this, but I also am terrified at the same time. Terrified.
I think you are speaking for most of our listeners. It's exciting and terrifying, but change always is. And I interviewed a guy about this topic, and he said it's not the tool; it's how we choose to use it. And he said the real innovators are the ones not saying how are we going to integrate this tool to solve our problem. It's more what can this tool do to solve a problem that we're going to have in the future. So just the way that he approached it was really helpful. And I'll put the link in the show notes at elkinsconsulting.com so that other people can listen to that episode again if they missed it. But why did you ask that question? I'm so curious. Usually I'm the one asking questions. So what was the driver for that question?
I mean, I also want to learn things about you. I bet your listeners want to learn a lot of things about you too. So maybe I'm speaking on behalf of the listeners then.
Be.
Yeah. No, but it's just natural curiosity.
I think in some ways I can predict answers to those questions sometimes if I have your Strengths Finder results in front of me. So as I was talking, I realized I'm thinking, I wonder if other people with adaptability and activator without any of the executing domain in StrengthsFinder, which would be achiever, responsibility, all those action drivers. I wonder if that's a common thing with people with similar talents to me. That was the first thing that popped into my head as you asked that, as I was answering that question, because, processing while speaking.
Yeah, I get you.
So I would like to know, when you think about the work that you're doing now in the context of trying to exercise that muscle of having dreams and not being afraid, being excited, your body doesn't know the difference between fear and excitement or stress and excitement. So we have to tell it that those are two different things. We have to be conscious about, oh, this is exciting, and my body needs to respond to it as excitement and not fear, because then we can't think. So when you think about your work now and the potential impact, where do you go with that? I felt it. I felt like you cared about the impact I could make in my work with communication training.
I think so. What you and I have in common is it's the stories. I think there's a lot of people I met so many people who are great at what they do when you're in face to face with them. But normally you need to walk a little bit of a path. It's a little bit of a journey until you get there. And the path beforehand can sometimes be quite underwhelming. Simply because, it's my specialty is essentially designing websites and telling stories that makes people captivated and want to engage. So I find that so many people, when it comes to website design and stuff like that, they know absolutely nothing. And most common thing is like create a website and they create a Wix template or something like that. And like, it's such a shame because I know they're so good at what they do, but the way they're presenting themselves to the world doesn't do that justice. So that's why when I find these people like you and other people who I know, that they're so great, like these people need a better representation of themselves online. That just lifts me up. And that's why like I'm super lucky to do what I do. So I think there's some super small details in someone's story, and all of a sudden it goes from boring to amazing.
I love that you just said that, because you're right. I mean, we're basically in the same line of work. When I'm coaching somebody in their public speaking, it's because they have a message that needs to be heard. And they need to present themselves in a way that the message is memorable, and that they're memorable because they're not selling a product, they're selling their own experience and inspiration. And then even with, the same with the website, is that that they can have broader impact. I do the same thing with my podcast. I think about the people that have so much potential for impact, and I just want to make sure that their voices are heard, that we're amplifying what they do and how they do it through story. Isn't that fun?
Exactly.
I hadn't put that together.
And I bet even with public speaking, we've all heard these examples of for example, intonations. I don't know if it's intonations or if this is me confusing it. But if you say, "How are you?" or "How are you?" it's a very, very different for the recipient. And it's like, that is the exact same thing with websites. If you have a green color or a blue color, it's going to be it can double the amount of people who's going to engage with that button or wherever you have that color. So it's so many small little details that you really won't see and you really won't even think exist, but you need that expert who can show them to you. And then you're like, wow, it was that simple.
Oh, that was exactly my experience with you. I mean, it was exactly my experience with you. I remember the moment you started talking about my LinkedIn profile, and you walked me through creating that LinkedIn wallpaper for my profile. And the moment you started showing me, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so simple. How was I missing this?
Yeah.
I've been on LinkedIn for 15 years. And honestly, when I received the message to have this consultation with you, this free consultation with you, I was like, I'm going to give you a little glimpse into the way my brain works. I used to, because I have command in my top talents, this means that I generally like to bring order out of chaos. I can't stand chaos. So I'm usually the one that I walk into a room and people just assume I'm the boss, which is ironic because I'm 5'0". I'm like this very petite woman, but I'd walk into a room with any boss and the assumption, except for in Montana where it's really good old boys club, especially 25 years ago. But the assumption is that I know what I'm doing and that I'm in charge. And how that translated was that I had a really hard time taking guidance from other people. Like I was really good at giving advice, but receiving was really hard for me. And I don't think that's unusual, but I think it's even harder for somebody with command in their top talents. So It wasn't until I started this work on my TEDx that will be November 3rd in Washington, D.C., that when they offered me a coach, I was like, okay, I'm a public speaker. It's something I've been doing. I train other people. But this is a really different beast. TED is a really different structure for a talk. And the end result, the purpose of it is different generally from public speaking in general. And I was like, a coach? Sure. I mean, that can't hurt. And I remember just putting together my initial submission back a year ago, September, and then fine tuning that from a 5-minute pitch to a 3-minute pitch and having help along the way. So when I saw your message, here's this free consultation. Let's see what we can do with your LinkedIn profile. I was like, what nugget am I going to get from this one? You mean this all started with having a coach for the first time when I took the Gallup strengths assessment, and Gallup sent out this offer for a discounted one-time session. And that coach changed my life in the first 15 minutes of our conversation. And I remember, and it comes back to this idea of that perception. I'm not good at remembering names. I'm not good at math. I don't do this. I'm not. And that whole idea that it makes us uncomfortable, which doesn't necessarily mean you're not good at it. It means you're not good at it yet.
You know, I've been thinking about this with both you and me has been to Australia. When I was there, I did one of these surfing courses or schools. It was like a 3-4 day. And like I realized something kind of interesting about things. That's such a broad way to say it. But no, like getting good at surfing, you're not going to get good in a day. And for surfing to be fun, you need to get good. Mostly, unless you just like flapping around in the water and being, tumbled around. But I find that there's a lot of things where we give up on them because we don't get to the level where it becomes fun. And surfing is one of those things that made me realize that there are some talents where you just need to go through the sucky part. But once you do, and you can actually stand and navigate on the board, if we do the surfing example, all of a sudden you realize this is my freaking thing. And or maybe even a better example, haven't you also had the experience where you've heard a song for like the 10th time and it's never really done anything for you, but the 10th time you heard it the right context, where you're at the right place, the right time, and all of a sudden was like, oh, this song is so good. Why haven't I liked this song before? And then you listen to it 1 billion times and you always will like it after that. But there's just some of those things where it needs to be the right time and the place and the right experience for you to start liking it. But from there on, it's just up.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it helps if like with surfing, there are some people that have a natural talent for it, but they're still going to have to learn. They're still going to have to get through the sucky part first, even if they're great at balance or, whatever they're good at. But it still is going to take time to get to the point where it's really fun, I think. And I think it's also important to see the fun in trying. So you mentioned before we hit record that you thought of yourself as somebody who's not good at remembering names. We were talking about it in the context of names being important. I was asking you to make sure that I was pronouncing your name correctly. And I told you the story about how one of my podcast guests didn't correct me until the last 10 minutes of our call. And I was embarrassed, which that doesn't make a person feel good to know they were mispronouncing your name for an hour. So it's just as important for that person, for the sake of their interviewer, to correct them right away. But tell us a story. I think our listeners will appreciate hearing this. You said you were bad at remembering names. Tell us a story about what you did and why it mattered.
Yeah, so I love personal growth and development, and I was in Sydney in Australia, and a really good friend of mine invited me to go to this personal development course. It was called Landmark, and it was going to be a sales presentation. And who signs up voluntarily for a sales presentation? Few people do. But since I trusted my friend, I went there, and I ended up signing up for the course. I did the course. It was completely transformational. And then I got asked if I wanted to volunteer for that thing. And so I did. And I had always had that feeling where names is just not my thing. Like I always forget people's names. So I, being extremely competitive, I was like, I'm just gonna try to see how many names that I can remember. And I think during this, it was like a weekend thing. I think it was around 70, 80 people. And I remembered every single name, but it was really like I just really tried. And I realized, like, look, I am not bad at name. I just don't really try it that hard. And like anything that if we really just try, we can discover those talents that we thought was just like, this is never going to work for me. But that was a huge eye opener for me that like I can do pretty much anything that I want if I'm interested and if I just want to learn it.
Do you remember having a
that hard.
strategy for it? Like, did you start out with an idea of a strategy that maybe you had to modify through the time so that it worked? Or did you make it up as you went along?
Yeah.
It's about
I used a lot of these like strategies that we hear about, like finding something that rhymes with a word, or like matching the name with a color or something that we're wearing, or a piece of information that you knew about them. And then you sort of like play in your head, you say the name like 5-10 times. But like I did some stuff like we all hear those kind of strategies to remember names. I just did those. But I think more than anything, like those strategies are cool, but it's just like, if you want it, it's way more likely that it's going to happen. And I even think about that even with like whenever we don't choose our interests. That's one of the most interesting things that I've learned lately. We don't really choose our thoughts. We don't really choose our interests. They just come to us. So that's why, like, why are we interested in communication and storytelling? I don't know. I just happen to be. You know,
I don't know.
It's not
I think
a choice.
it may not be a choice, but I think we gravitate toward things for different reasons. I know I've gravitated toward this because I really love people. I believe in community, and I believe that community and relationships are what create satisfaction in a person's life. Happiness isn't something to search for. Satisfaction is, because satisfaction brings you those moments of happiness when you find the relationships that are current in your life to be satisfying, when you intentionally build relationships that are satisfying by using your words, setting boundaries, picking people that you feel good about and that make you feel good about yourself. Like, you may not be intentionally doing this, but I think we gravitate toward it. And that's what I said when you said that you remembered all these names. I said, that's because you care about people. You chose to remember these people because it makes them feel seen and heard when you remember their names.
Do you think, so question for you again here. I'm taking over this interview.
That's great.
Do you think love is a choice?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. I think like is a choice. Like is hard. I think love is easy. Liking somebody is harder.
So what do you mean here? Loving someone?
I can always,
easy, but liking is hard.
Right. So I can always find something to love about a person. Well, 99% of the time. In the US, it's pretty hard right now. It's pretty hard right now. But in general, almost everyone in my experience, I've found ways to love them, to see what they bring. And in some cases, it's simply lessons of what I don't want in my life. I can love them for offering these lessons to me, but I can't necessarily like them, because like involves spending time. Like involves respect. Like involves choosing what your relationship is with that person. So I actually wrote a podcast and blog post about this years and years ago, that love is easy and like is hard. And I was saying that
Interesting.
I've been with my husband for a really long time. As of this year, it's 30 years together. And
Congratulations.
thank you. And in that context, it's like, well, yeah, you have to choose to like a person. You have to choose and set boundaries to make sure that you continue to like a person.
I think your audience just learned something that makes you a little bit different. I think most people would say that liking is easy and loving is hard. It almost feels like the latter is like loving is like the peak emotion or feeling about someone. Liking is down that ladder. But I see your point.
If you can have foundational love and gratitude, your whole life will change. Foundational love. Choosing. Now, maybe you just answered the question for me. Yeah, love is a choice. You're right. Love is a choice. And if you can choose foundational love, that and that includes critters, it includes the mountains and the ocean, choosing love and gratitude first, and then building from there. I choose love first.
So, speaking about TED Talks, have you seen the TED Talk of it's a guy called Sean Aker? This is one of the top 10 highest rated or highest watched TED Talks of all time. Do you know which one this is?
Is his the one on happiness?
Yeah.
Yes, I have. Yeah. It's pretty amazing.
It's a hilarious, like it's so funny, but so insightful at the same time. And man, I was so lucky I found that TED Talk in the perfect moment in life when you're just becoming an adult and your mind is really malleable.
Malleable.
But I remember listening to that thing and where he sort of like says, you know, you will become a better performer if you're positive. And I can't remember if he exactly said that, but like happiness actually is kind of a choice. You can really choose to a large degree to be happy, or at least whatever happens to you, you see the good in it. And even if it isn't true, it will serve you in a sense.
His book is really good. My brother sent it to me as a gift.
Yeah.
It's a really good book.
I read it too. It's amazing.
So one of the things that also came up, speaking of TEDx, was that I told myself that I didn't memorize my keynotes, didn't memorize the talks or the workshops that I gave, because I want them to feel organic and authentic. That's what I would tell myself for years. This experience of doing a 5-minute pitch and then a 3-minute pitch and now working on my 12-minute talk has completely tripped that up. And I think of it as almost an excuse because I don't like memorizing. It's not fun for me. And I realize that all that time, yes, there is some aspect of truth to it, that it may feel less organic if it's memorized. But what I found, my experience was that when I did that 3-minute pitch, having it memorized gave me the luxury of truly being present in the moment and engaging with the audience, because I wasn't thinking, what am I going to say next? I was really looking at the audience, watching their body language, knowing what was landing and what wasn't, and learning from every moment of that talk, even in 3 minutes. So I just had to get that in there because I know there are other listeners out there that say, oh, I don't memorize it because I want it to feel this way or that way. And I'm here to tell you that I'm doing it and I'm finding great, it's liberating. And it's not easy. It is hard work. And I'm finding strategies. I remember lyrics to songs because I'm a singer. The way I remember lyrics is I sing along. Sometimes I'll look at the lyrics printed while I'm singing along. But the trick is just to listen to it over and over and over again and sing along with it over and over and over again. That's how we do things, right? And so I've recorded both my talk and other things now, and I listen to them over and over and over again from my phone.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about? I can see your wheels turning. What did that uncover for you?
No, but just about like not. We all want to feel authentic and like spontaneous in a way. But I told you before the call too that I used to work in like my first job was sales. And there you also get handed typically a script and then like say these things in this sequence and so on and so forth. But I never ever really resonated with it. I found them super helpful, but I never follow them strictly because I'm just like, you're losing me, losing the personality. And it's good just to have that mind map of where it's going to go, in what direction do you want to go. So it's good for the structure.
Mm-hmm.
But I never really ever followed those scripts because it's...
Well, let's come back to that. The context is really, really important here. If you're talking one-to-one, a script is not going to serve you. First of all, you can't connect with an audience if you have a script in your head and you're not going to go off of it. You can't connect with them. You can't be watching for their interactions. You can't be watching their body language if you are just stuck in a script one-to-one. So I think that's a really important thing. I had a chiropractor I worked with the first time I went to a chiropractor, and he was so shy, so introverted, that he had his script memorized in the consult room so that he could get through it.
How do you know?
Because I could hear it in how he was speaking. It was very mechanical. And he's a really nice guy, but it was so mechanical. And I interrupted him. I was like, I know you feel compelled to share all this information with me, but I don't need to be sold to. Just do the adjustment. And if I feel better, I'll keep coming back. You don't need to sell me this. I'm here. I'm sitting in the seat.
Yeah.
I'm in pain. Like I had severe sciatica going on and a toddler at home that I had to lift and carry. And I could tell he was really like thrown because he had this memorized script that was keeping him feeling confident in that room. Once he went off script, his confidence tanked.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, when I'm talking about memorizing something, I'm talking about like a speech. And even then, when I do a keynote, it's usually about 45 or 50 minutes. And you're right, I have parts of it phrased out, but I also have engaging opportunities to ask the audience questions and do small exercises, tabletop exercises and stuff like that. But I do memorize the first part and the last part because those are the things people remember the most.
Yeah. Yep, that makes sense. There's a storytelling art form that I just so much respect is stand-up comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most people, like the first time you hear stand-up comedy, you think that it's all spontaneous. But like they say the same thing like thousands of times. They just have practiced so much that it sounds natural. And that these are the good ones, obviously. But yeah, every single person received that phone call with someone where you hear they're reading a script and there's no human behind it whatsoever. Right. It's just so off-putting.
These are the people that lose their jobs through AI. For sure.
Yeah. No, that's true. But even with, there is a structure to telling a good joke too. Like you need to do a setup, you need to have the right timing. That there is not a script per se, but there is a structure that likely is going to work better if you follow.
Yeah. And phrasing, you said intonation. Phrasing is also a key. And you'll notice it in certain songs, how the phrasing shifts. And especially if you listen to different versions of a classic song. You'll hear how the vocalist and primary instruments like the guitar shift phrasing to fit their own ideas of what the song should sound like. And it's the same song, but the way that they present it is different. Could be all the same notes, but the phrasing shifts. The stress on different syllables, yeah, it's really interesting.
What kind of music are you into? Is it classical music mostly?
Oh no, I listen to every different kind of music. I am not usually a big fan of country music, but I just discovered an artist. Her songs are often the theme songs in that New Zealand detective show that I was telling you about before we hit record. It's called Brokenwood. And her theme songs show up in episodes. Her name is Tammy Nielsen. And she's like this, it's more like 40s and 50s country music mostly. I mean, sometimes she has the more current pop sound to it, but like one of her songs made me think of Johnny Cash and Patsy Cline. And I love that. Why do you ask?
No, because I was listening to I was scrolling social media yesterday and something come up about like Eminem and how he spontaneously created some form of rap. This was obviously more like dissing thing.
Right.
But like just the way he like his whole sentence is like bent into the next sentence and it becomes a rhyme. Like it was just, God damn, what a talent.
I know. So creative. Unbelievable. I know.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, I like rap. Certain kinds of rap. I don't like violent rap. I don't like listening to rap that is all about hurting people or bitches. I can't listen to that stuff. Mostly because I know that music influences as much as story influences. And I find it irresponsible in some ways to have lyrics that talk about things that encourage hatred or violence of any kind. I struggle even with some of the detective shows that I watch because it's almost like they're giving ideas to people, more creative ideas of exerting pain on others. But what can you do?
Yeah, I'm so torn between these two because, of course, no one wants to encourage violence. I don't like. I think some people do it for status and looking cool, especially when they're mature. But like, at the same time, here's something that I've been thinking about lately. That is, we have like ongoing conversations in our head that we're trying to figure out, and we're like debating them, and we're
what about this?
Like, maybe it's this way. Yeah, exactly.
The internal dialogue.
Yeah. For me, one of those conversations that me and my 14 different internal personalities are debating is like how, whether it's politically or religion or whatever it is, we all have so many different, like everyone knows on so different sides of things. But I'm just coming to more and more of an understanding that we need it all. Like we need the left as much as we need the right. And the answer is not one or the either. There is like somewhere there in the middle is where society can function best. And we need the ugly, we need the beautiful, and we need the good, but we also need the bad. We need the good or we need the evil. So like I had this super controversial thing that I was playing around with my head, which was if Adolf Hitler had never existed, how would the world look today? Like, how would it be different? Because his bad example taught us what to not do. And
Except
if we didn't have that
learned
example,
from it, we're still doing it though.
Yeah.
We're still doing it. I mean, as a Jewish woman, I can tell you The anti-Semitism is stronger now than it ever was when I was growing up.
Mm.
At least that's been my experience. Yeah,
But in a
I
sense,
hear you.
So long ago. Yeah.
It wasn't that long ago. It wasn't that long.
No, but I
ago.
mean, there's been a generation or not a generation, but there's been a lot of people in between who, you know, like for instance, with everything of these things comes in waves. George Floyd, like when a big thing happened, it's really present in society for a bit, but then it slowly the volume turns down.
Right.
It's almost like we need
the pendulum swings.
Yeah.
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 One thing that popped into my head was that my internal dialogue often contradicts myself. Like I'll be thinking, well, this.
Oh, yeah.
I'll give myself a devil's advocate conversation. And it's part of why I don't post anything political on social media, is because I know that it doesn't change anyone's mind. It just doesn't. I don't want to contribute to the noise. So one-to-one, I'll have these conversations with people, or even in small groups. I love having those conversations, but I won't do it on social media because it doesn't help. And I want to help.
Yeah.
We're going to make those stories, right? We're going to make the stories that we want to share, live them.
Exactly.
Edward, this has been such a treat, as I knew it would. For our listeners, what's one thing you took away from this conversation that you would want to maybe have that internal dialogue for a little while, or that you know will create an internal dialogue and you're going to process it over time?
I think there is a very healthy, constant reminder that conversations like this give me, is that like, I think it's so important to have extended dialogues in the super fast-paced world that we live in. I worry that conversations are getting too short, and like that shortness means that you're gonna just be able to reach a specific level of depth. But it's when we can sit down and what have we done now? In an hour and 13, you and me at the very least. I feel like it's after the first 30 where you really can get into some interesting stuff. And I'm very curious about how the way we have friendships in the future are going to develop. I think it's important. Conversation like this is going to be super important. I just don't see people have long conversations like this very often. So
I agree with that. And I see the potential for this shift by having meals together, putting your phones away and having meals together. I think that's why our family is so close, is we had dinner together almost every night as our boys were growing up, with extended conversations. They took more than 30 minutes to sit down and eat together. That is a great takeaway. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Listeners, it's your turn. I have a few questions for you. The first is, what is something that you say that you're not good at? And maybe it's time to ask yourself the question, am I not good at it? Or have I decided not to be good at it? Have I decided not to try? Is it something that I feel like I call inauthentic when it's actually I'm just uncomfortable or I don't like it? The next thing I would love to hear from you about is, what was your takeaway? I was thinking about the difference between love and like, and why I feel like love is a more important choice. What are your foundational approaches to people and things? Because that will color how you choose happiness as well. And last, I would love to hear what you are going to do with this one precious life in having conversations, extended conversations with people in your community. Now, go. Thanks for listening.
You must keep on trying. Smile, what's the use of crying? You'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile.